Hello, everyone. I just forgive me for being a bit out of it. It's like 11:45, and this is really something I thought should be said, and I typed it out so then that way I don't have to do a lot of remembering and pausing, because we all know when I try to do things from memory, it comes out wrong. So, with that said, you know, I'm so tired of hearing it's a choice after one is born whether to be straight or gay, or um, the government is taking away our rights as Christians if we let gays marry. Sick of seeing bullying okay by right-wing politicians. Tired of playing the waiting game to see if I measure up to being human to conservatives. And, I know the wait wouldn't be long, but, ultimately it was a lot of nonsense to put up with growing up. I mean, I could have been myself growing up. Instead, I had to put on a persona that would at least keep me alive long enough to the next day out of fear of being dragged and beaten in the town I grew up in. I grew up in Pocahontas, Arkansas, and it was not a cakewalk. I mean, some good people, but ultimately, just it was a better community than most. I'll give it that much. Growing up, I felt that there must have been a lot of hatred in the world for someone to just hate me because of who I am, or even flat out tell me I'm going to hell. I mean, honestly, it never phases me anymore, but as a child, it was like somebody beating me with a whip. I was scared shitless. And I just honestly thought that, it's like, well, hell, I'm I'm going to go to hell and there's nothing I can do about it. So I put up with it and just for the longest time did not know what to do. And I kept thinking to myself, I would hear that phrase, you're going to, or all gay people and lesbians go to hell. And I think, you know, why would a deity, why would a god make someone only to make them suffer for eternity for how he or she is made? And, it was just really just a scare tactic, I realized later on, because it just didn't pertain to me. I wasn't really Christian, but it took me a while to realize that it really doesn't pertain to me or anyone that's not Christian. And growing up around, see, I realized I was gay, or at least different. I didn't know there was an exact word for it at first. I was like 6 or 7, and I noticed I was kind of different from all the other boys because all the other boys are, I'd see on TV, it's like, oh, that girl is hot or something like that, and I would be thinking, I kind of like the guy better. I didn't really think of it much at first until I started hearing all the, anti-gay rhetoric and what at the time I thought was fact. And at the same time, I would try to tell someone, that hearing them say that, it was hurtful. Because here I am sitting there, can't say a thing, yet they get to mouth off everything they can to get their beliefs across, and yet I can't be me, without fear of getting beaten. I mean, that's just kind of unfair. And it was tearing me apart and ultimately ostracizing me from everyone I grew up with. I didn't mind anyone else, what they believed in. That's their belief. I always thought, and that's still true today. What they believe is their business. I even went to church as an act of good faith. It's like I don't believe the same thing y'all do, but I'll go just to socialize at least. Just to see what's on the other side of those doors. And I spent a couple years doing that, going to church, keeping quiet, asking questions, why is it this way, why is it that way, and why couldn't it be this way, etc., etc., etc. I at least tried to understand, which was really more than any but effort anyone else put out. More than any other kind of effort anyone else put out, to be honest. Yeah, I, as much as people kind of started liking me and getting to know me, I knew if I let it slip that I was gay, that I would not only put myself in danger, but my family as well, and I wasn't going to have that. And back then, there were really no protections for LGBT people. I mean, not that it's any safer now in that state, but but more so back then, we were at risk of having our lives taken away, pulled apart by both preacher and churchgoer. That was my fear. And even today, a few months back, some preacher and some deacons beat his own son just to teach him a lesson. And, it's still not safe today. I mean, it's much better than it was in the 90s and 80s. It was, oh my God. I mean, looking back then, it was a hell on earth compared to today. I mean, but I can't imagine, for kids today still, with everything being in the news, and how scary it must be right now for kids. At least back then, I kept myself to myself, and I knew I was safe then, but it shouldn't be at a point these days. It's why I came out. I just felt when I came out, it was time. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of hiding who I am. Tired of putting on a persona every day and watching everyone else live their lives and be happy when I'm sitting there miserable, wondering when can I find my other half? When can I be happy? When can I go out in the world and not have to pretend? And but growing, like I was about 14, 15, no, I think I was 16 though. I started doing research, when I was sure no one was looking. Even on school property, that was a scary ass thing at first. Because I had to go through delete history because I didn't want people knowing. I mean, it was ridiculous. And then I studied on the history of the LGBT community. Why were we so hated? Why were we so wrong to exist to people? And I found out, we're not wrong in who we are. I mean, nobody is wrong for being who they are. As long as it doesn't trample on the rights or safety of other people. We are who we are. And those before me, they were just living their lives just like we're trying to do. And at one point, a few tried to get married, and then all of a sudden it became a huge debate then, and those rights were taken away. And that was up until modern time, when laws really started getting to be seriously enforced. I mean, there were those of us getting thrown in jails just for loving someone. I mean, it wasn't fair. And compared to them in the 1920s, 1930s, heck, 1940s and into the 50s, we have it so much better than they did then. But I digress. Uh, but soon, it began to really fester, I think. The hatred by anti-equality groups, preachers, deacons, and even as far as parents who just feared the worst for their child if their child was ever born gay or lesbian. And, families started falling apart due to the lies and discrimination against the LGBT community, as right-wing conservatives and such tried to cover it up, blaming AIDS on the gay community, or even being as ridiculous to say that we're the ones trying to tear apart families. But it's their laws that does that and more. Committed couples under laws that have their children taken away because they're deemed unfit because they are same-sex couples. Uh, you know, uh, Loving couples, especially binational couples, being separated because even though they're married, they are not protected, as married couples. You know, Pitting families against each other, splitting families over, who their kids are, or who their uncle is, or, anyone in the family, depending on who they are, really. It's just, there's divisions there caused by such anti-equality laws, and all in all, anti-equality laws take away the love that could exist between all people, regardless of sexuality. It's kind of sad. The main religions that are so against it, yet proclaim so much love, seem to cause a lot of dysfunction with the laws they pass. And honestly, I think we're just tired of it. It's election night. It was election night. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, really? No? No, almost midnight. I forgot. I gotta set my clock back. And, it's proof that, people are tired of it. We're tired of our families being torn apart by conservatives. And, ultimately, I acknowledge that conservative people may not like who I am, but they cannot deny that we are all we're trying to all do is live our own lives. We're all human in that fact. We are just trying to live our life. I mean, if we were to be headed down the path of inequality, which I am pretty sure we averted by a narrow a narrow margin, gosh. No, I would say this nation would be doomed. But now I see that our future ahead is so much brighter, ever since recent times, elections, especially just being last night. I'm going to say last night. I don't care if it's a few minutes before midnight. Uh, it's like, it's one of those feelings where you can almost feel it. You can almost taste it. And, you just barely hear it over the horizon. It's like there. It's like, God, I can't wait to put all this stuff behind us. We can all just look back and be like, wow, what were we thinking? But, if I had a message for anyone in my home state, Arkansas, who is like me growing up, or who is like me right now, who is like I was when I was growing up, I would say never be ashamed of who you are. You're just as good as anyone else. Anyone else that tells you that it's wrong to be gay, lesbian, bi, transgender, or even questioning, they are the ones who are fools. And, I always like this one phrase, I gotta tell you, you have to ask yourself one thing. The fools that tell you you have to do it their way, not march to your own drumbeat of who you are, who would be more foolish? The fool or the fool who follows him or her? Be the better man. Be the better woman. And that goes for straight people too. Be the better man. Be the better woman. Respect other people. That's all we ask. All we ask is for just the same respect you would allow each other. We're people too. And for those of you who are trying to take away equality, just stop. It's a losing war on your end. The more you aggravate the situation, the more harm you're doing to youth and adults alike. Because you know exactly who I blame for kids killing themselves as of late. You know exactly who I hold responsible for families being torn apart by anti-equality laws. You know exactly who I blame for homeless LGBT because of unfair housing laws. You know exactly who I blame for the torment and murders of the